What's going on, guys? My name is Richard. Welcome back to a weekly Watchlist video sponsored by MarketSmith. And this week, because we are in market pullback mode, let me actually bring up the NASDAQ composite very quickly. I'll be kind of noting stocks that are holding up better than the general market. And because they're kind of resisting this market downturn, they're being basically supported by institutions. And when the uptrend resumes and we start to trend above the 21 EMA and 50 SMA, these are likely to be leaders going forward. So with that said, let's bring up my focus list for this week, and let me know down below in the comment section throughout this video what you think about these setups, what do you think about these stocks, and also suggest any that you think I've left off this list. But with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the charts, and please go ahead right now to leave me a like down below on this video. It really helps me out and the channel, and of course subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one every single week. So first up, we've got ABNB, which has been on this list quite a bit here. You can see it's kind of changed character from these very wide and loose days back in this area. And now it's starting to move out the right-hand side of its first primary base below around 220. So a little bit of a character change. And what I really like is this sign of relative strength late last week where it held the 21 EMA and had a really nice push on this Friday. So what I'll be watching for is maybe some tight action, maybe some inside days. And if we gap down, basically a strong recovery, red to green move, and eventually a high volume push through this level and a push towards the 180 level, which had been resistance right in the past. So definitely want to watch. Obviously, you probably know the fundamental story here. Great sales growth. Estimates are up. Estimate revisions are up as well. It's supposed to be just barely profitable in 2022. A huge increase in fund ownership and a whole bunch of high quality funds as well. And this amount of high quality fund sponsorship, where you got 5 of the IBD mutual fund index funds invested in this company, suggests that maybe during turbulent market times, funds will be stepping in, absorbing any selling that occurs, and accumulating those shares. That is ABNB, definitely one to watch. Moving on, we've got Affirm, which had big elephant footprints here, suggesting that institutions are accumulating on these huge gap ups with strong closing ranges. And now it's holding above the 21 EMA here, even given the general market pullback. And it hasn't really made a huge push upwards, and the relative strength line is kind of going flat. But you do have double inside days to end out last week, suggesting that on a smaller time frame, there is some accumulation going on. So that is a little bit about the chart. Obviously, you've got great sales growth the past 4 quarters. Estimate revisions are down. It's not supposed to be profitable within the next 2 years, but I've heard some basically stories about how a bunch of holiday shopping is going to be buy now, pay later, which would definitely benefit this company. And you've got great fund sponsorship already and Fidelity Contra Fund with a position. So I'll be watching this one carefully, see if we take out these pivots and basically hold this swing low into next week. So that is AFRM, and another indication that institutions are getting interested in this name especially is the step up in average daily volume. Moving on, we've got AMBA, another recent gap up on earnings. A nice move out of the stage 1 cup and holding once again above the 21 EMA. Great earnings growth and sales growth the past 2 quarters. Great estimates for this year and fall through in 2023. A nice increase in fund ownership and 1 high quality fund investing into this company. Overall, this is a leading group. As you can see, it's number 7 out of 197. And I do want to mention that I don't have any oil and gas names or transport names, which are basically the 2 main leading groups at this point. But those are definitely acting well. MTDR, I'll be watching pretty closely here. It just broke out of a stage 2 pivot here after a nice run. But those aren't my primary focus because they're not traditional growth areas. But I will be watching those for opportunities next week. And getting back to AMBA, you can see a nice breakout from this base here. A huge push on earnings and a nice run. And now its first kind of natural reaction back towards the moving averages. So I like how it held up pretty tight for 4 of the last 5 days last week, and we'll have to see if it forms out here, manages to push up towards the 160 level, or if it needs a little bit of time and a gradual pullback to the 21 EMA will actually be pretty ideal, but so far it's holding this previous point of resistance. Moving on, we've got another A stock, AMEH, Apollo Medical Holdings, a huge run here and now forming its first kind of main base here. You've got some pivots around 100. Now it is a little bit wider and looser compared to this first action, but definitely want to watch going forward, and a big push off the 50 SMA on Friday. Overall, some growth numbers down here, not explosive estimates, but you've got a nice increase in fund ownership, but no high quality funds invested into this stock. So there's really a kind of play on the relative strength and the overall chart pattern. And I do want to see this form up, really kind of have some tight inside days, then break out to the upside, managing risk right at this swing low. Moving on, we've got apps, Digital Turbine, which is changing character a little bit since these high volume gap ups, and definitely trading a lot tighter, as you can see, compared to this wide and loose action as it was just starting to form out this base. Overall, great earnings growth, sales growth, margins the past 4 quarters, great estimates for this year, and nice fall through in 2023, although estimate revisions are down. Really nice increase in fund ownership and 2 high quality funds investing into this stock. Now looking at the chart, I like how it held the 200-day SMA as well as this prior pivot with the general market weakness and a nice push on Friday as well. So I'll be watching for a continued move up and a push through these pivots around this area. So that is apps. Definitely one to watch as it moves up the right hand side. And if it does make it towards 80, I would expect some type of consolidation. Ideally, a handle, some shakeouts before pushing through that level on volume. Moving on, we've got Bill, another recent gap up on earnings, which is holding up reasonably well. Really nice push the last 4 days of last week. Great sales growth the past 4 quarters. And this stock isn't supposed to be profitable this year or the next, and estimate revisions are down. But look how many funds are invested in the stock, and look at how many high quality funds from the IBD Mutual Fund Index are accumulating shares. So definitely got some really strong sponsorship here and also acting well given the general market pullback. So that is Bill. Definitely want to watch going forward to see if it forms some inside days, forms some tightness, and some other area where you can manage risk, but you could manage risk versus the 21 EMA at this point if it manages to push through this level. Moving on, we've got DOCN, another stock that's holding up reasonably well, holding that 21 EMA. Decent sales growth the past 4 quarters, really strong estimates for next year. Estimate revisions are up as well. A nice increase in fund ownership and 3 high quality funds already in this stock. So overall, bullish outside day. This would have been the first entry point here through the prior day's high, as well as the 80 mark. But I wouldn't be surprised to see this stock kind of pull back, form out some more structure here against the moving average, because kind of in the spirit of a high tight flag, this needs a little bit more time to build out that consolidation before pushing back towards all-time high. So that is DOCN, definitely one to watch, showing RS especially on this Friday. Moving on, we've got GDRX, another stock potentially moving up the right-hand side of its institutional due diligence phase. It pulled back nicely to this prior pivot around 40 and responded nicely the past 3 days. Some growth numbers down here. Great estimates for 2022, up 53%, although estimate revisions are down. Looking at fund sponsorship, you don't have a clear trend here. It actually decreased to 175, but you do have one high-quality fund invested into this stock. What I'm watching for is for it to hold the 21 EMA, maybe have a little bit of a pullback, maybe a red to green move, and then push towards this pivot and the 50 level. So definitely want to watch going forward. Moving on, we've got GLBE, which is a little bit wide and loose here, but it is holding the moving averages. Great sales growth the past 4 quarters, not supposed to be profitable this year or the next, but you've got 95 funds in here and one high quality fund in there as well. And I would like to see some tight action, especially considering we had a downside reversal on this Friday. I would like to see it hold above 70, maybe on market weakness, and then try to take out these pivots to the upside, managing risk right at the 50 SMA. So that is GLBE. And moving on, we've got HUT, a cryptocurrency related stock. You've also got SI in the same group, as well as Coin, which I'll be watching as well. But overall, great growth numbers back here and really strong estimates for 2022 with estimate revisions up as well. You don't have many funds in this stock and no high quality funds. So this is a little bit more of a speculative play. But overall, really nice relative strength on Thursday and Friday, taking out this pivot. And I wouldn't mind to see some type of consolidation and then a push through these highs once again. Definitely want to watch going forward, especially if you're interested in this space. Moving on, we've got LC, which had a really strong quarter. Earnings up 115%, sales up 416%. Estimates for annual EPS are good for 2022. And looking at the fund sponsorship, you can see a gradual trend, a gradual increase here, but no high quality funds at this point. Looking at the chart, it's holding the 50 SMA. Nice push on this Thursday, especially. A little bit of a downside reversal on declining volume here on Friday. But if you draw an anchored VWAP in TC2000 or Trading View, you can see that held it right at this point, as well as these 2 points. So definitely a level to watch going forward. But I really like how this is acting overall. And UPST in this kind of same group here is one I'm watching as well. But it looks like it was distributed a little bit here and might need some time to base around 300, but did hold that 21 EMA for the time being. But LC and UPST definitely ones to watch going forward. Moving on, we've got Netflix, which among the big caps held up really well. Great growth numbers the past 2 quarters, great estimates for this year and the next, and estimate revisions are up. That's a great sign. A gradual increase in fund ownership and a whole bunch of high quality funds in there as well. I really like the signs of RS here, holding the 21 EMA, and you've got a pivot right at 615.60. So I want to see a push through that on volume, and you can see it's been basing for basically more than a year at this point, and it's got a history of basing for a long time and then having a nice quick push. So maybe we get that going into next week and going into the end of the year. But definitely, if you like the larger cap names, Netflix is one to watch, especially considering the relative strength compared to Apple, Amazon, which are suffering a little bit more given the general market weakness. So that is Netflix. Moving on, we've got Skin, another high-flying name, which is holding up really well. And you had great sales growth the past quarter, great estimates for 2022, nice increase in fund ownership, but no high-quality funds in here just yet. Looking at the chart, you have a huge push from this IPO base here, first consolidation, and it's holding that 50 SMA, so that's a line in the sand here, and currently holding that 21 EMA, even given the market weakness. And overall, this pullback has been on pretty low volume, lower than the 50-day moving average, and you had a nice close on Thursday and a really nice end to the week on Friday. So I'm watching for a continued move up off the 21 EMA and a push back towards all-time highs. Moving on, we've got Tesla, another large cap name holding up really well. Great growth numbers in terms of earnings, sales margins, great estimates for this year and the next, and estimate revisions are up. A nice increase in fund ownership and 3 high-quality funds in there as well. I believe they also came out with good delivery numbers. Don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure, but we'll have to see how basically institutions interpret those numbers going into next week. Overall, forming a consolidation here, holding up above the 21 EMA, right below this pivot at this point, but nice upside reversal action on this Friday. So I'm watching for a push through this level on volume and a breakout of this short consolidation below 800. Next up, we've got Uber, which has been basing for quite a while, but we did have a huge push up on the highest volume in 12 months here, and definitely some RS relative to the general market during this pullback, and a great close on Thursday as well as on Friday. And I'll be watching for a push through these levels, which also lines up with, if we go to a weekly chart, this kind of top of the prior base. So it's always interesting when there's kind of some confluence in the charts, and we'll have to see whether this can fall through to the upside or if it needs maybe 1 week, one tight inside week to consolidate before pushing through that level. But that is Uber. Definitely want to watch. And last on the list, we've got a recent IPO, WEBR, which really stood out to me on these days right here when the general market was really suffering here. This showed clear relative strength, and you don't have too many growth numbers this past quarter, but you do have a history of it. The prior quarters, decent estimates in terms of annual EPS this year and the next. No fund information just yet, but just looking at the chart, you can see it's acting well, and it's right below this kind of midpoint within the base, if you call this a double bottom, within this first consolidation. So I'll be watching for a push through this level on volume, and overall this is holding up really well, especially considering it is a recent IPO and the general market is in a decline. You can see that clearly from the relative strength. And once again, this is my focus list going into next week. Let me know your thoughts down below on these setups, and let me know any stocks that you think I should add to this list. And with that said, thanks again for watching. Remember to leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Thanks.